Welcome, I'm Craig Sigl, your mental toughness trainer. Now, since this is a mental toughness training, I think it's appropriate to start off by answering the question, what is mental toughness? So here's what a few of my athlete clients have said. Mental toughness is doing whatever is necessary to get the job done, including handling the demands of a tough workout, withstanding pain, or beating an opponent out at the end of a race. How about this? To have the mental ability to let go of what your body feels and put your full focus in the game. Or mental toughness is not letting anyone break you. One of my favorites. Mental toughness is not being affected by anything that's going on in the game or competition, no matter what coaches, other players, officials are doing. Being able to block out what's not important and stay focused on what is important. Now, these are all true, but I want to add, it's doing whatever it takes to achieve your goals, despite losses, mistakes, difficulties, and setbacks. And most importantly, it is knowing how to bounce back from adversity. By the end of this training, you will have learned to do all of that. Now, I'm sure we all know athletes who exhibit mental toughness, as I've talked about. But one of my favorites is the story of hockey player Maurice Richard. Now check this out. He didn't even start playing hockey until he was 14. During the Great Depression, when he was only 16, he had to drop out of school to work in the rail yard to help feed his family, and he continued to play hockey. Now imagine, as a teenager, having to work at a very physically demanding job all day and then going to practice afterward. You think you've got it tough. And when World War II broke out, he was just 18. And he wanted to serve his country, Canada, so he tried to enlist in the Army. And get this, they would not take him because he had too many broken bones from playing hockey. He never properly healed from all of them, and so he even had to adjust his skating style to compensate for all his injuries. But he never gave up. Next, he tried to get a job as a machinist, but they still rejected him because he didn't have a trade certificate, even though he'd been working as a machinist for years at the rail yard. So what does he do? He works to get his machinist certificate over the next 4 years, while he's still playing in the NHL from the Montreal Canadiens. Maurice Richard ended up becoming one of the top 5 hockey players of all time, and stories of his mental toughness in hockey are numerous and legendary. In his first year of his professional career, he broke his ankle. For a hockey player, this can be career-ending, and he was almost dropped from the team. But the injury didn't stop him. Nope. The next season, he was back. And at 5 foot 10 inches tall and only 170 pounds, he was on the small side for a hockey player. Opposing teams learned that the only way to stop Richard from scoring was to physically abuse and foul him. They would send in what are called enforcers, and who had like 50 pounds on him, and whose sole job was to fight with Richard to disrupt his game. But even that didn't stop him. He was the first hockey player to ever score 50 goals in 50 games. He was the NHL all-time scorer by the end of his 18-year career, and he led his team to 8 Stanley Cups. Now here's a quick funny story that shows his mental toughness. In December of '44, he spent a day moving his family into a new home, all day long hauling furniture. His brother-in-law, who actually helped him, saw how exhausted he was at the end of the day, and he actually bet on him scoring any goals in that night's game against the Detroit Red Wings. He ended up scoring 5 goals, made 3 assists. Now, there's many stories of how he would get beaten up and bloodied, but he still stayed out there on the ice assisting his team to win. Now, one of the famous of these games was the 1952 Stanley Cup semifinals. Richard collided with the Bruins defenseman and he fell head first to the ice. A hushed forum crowd watched as Richard was carried out unconscious, out. Now, he should have been done for the night, but of course, that didn't stop him either. With 4 minutes left and the score tied, Richard, with a big bandage covering 6 stitches and blood dripping down his face, made one of his famous rink-length dashes. He skated around 3 Bruins, including the guy who knocked him down, before scoring an amazing series-winning goal. Not that Richard knew it happened. He said, "I heard the crowd yell. By that time, I was too dizzy to even see," he said. He was also a role model for French Canadians who regarded him as a hero. And when he passed away in the year 2000, 115,000 Canadians paid their respects at his funeral. The Rocket was more than a hockey player to his fellow Canadians. It was his fury, his desire, and his intensity that motivate them. Now, throughout his career, he was never afraid to stand up for what he believed in, even if it sometimes cost him dearly. There's a movie about him called The Rocket. It's really good. Now that's mental toughness. It's about not letting anything stop you from achieving your goals. And the good news is you're going to learn here how to ignore distractions, keep your eye on your goals, and not let anybody knock you off your game, just like Richard. So mental toughness is being consistently focused, determined, confident, and having the ability to bounce back, especially under pressure. Now, I'm betting that you have been mentally tough like that sometimes in your past, at least for a short period, right? Haven't you? And I know you have it in you. And I want to help you maximize that so you can be as successful as possible in your sport and in your life. That's what this is about. It's about getting more and more out of you because it's so competitive these days in the world. Every year it gets more and more competitive, and mental toughness is what is going to give you the edge to be successful. And you know what? Most kids, they never learn this stuff that I'm going to teach you. Learning how to be mentally tough whenever you want to is going to give you a huge advantage in competition, especially under pressure and when it really counts. That's my promise to you. You want that, right? All right, let's get going. So how do you become mentally tough? Well, I hate to break this to you, but it really comes from this. Repeated exposure to difficulty, and like I said, coming back stronger. Putting yourself in tough situations like losing big games or events or tournaments. Choking when your teammates are counting on you, and then recovering, coming back. Now, I know it's not fun to go through all that, but when you are mentally tough, you can handle it very easily, and you get right back on track towards your goals and your success. And this builds your confidence too. And that also makes you play better. It makes you feel better about yourself. All good stuff, right? Becoming mentally tough is just like weight training, you know? You work out, you actually tear your muscles down when you work out. And then they recover and come back even stronger. Same thing with mental and the brain, right? Now, you no doubt will be torn down at some point in your sport. And you'll need to build back up, just like the Rocket. Also, I want you to know, you're not alone. Everybody goes through this in sports and in life. And you see, most kids, they experience things like worrying and being anxious. Can't bring your practice game to the big event or the big game. Negative thinking, a lack of confidence. And you know, I work with a lot of kids who lack confidence. Maybe this story sounds familiar to you. I had this one 12-year-old football quarterback I trained on mental toughness. Now his problem, he was awesome in practice, but whenever we would go out there on the field for a game, he would get very nervous and he'd lose his confidence, and that hurt his play. You see, he would end up thinking more about trying not to make mistakes than just going for it and using his skills like he was taught. And that's very typical of young athletes when they have pressure. Now, I taught him the same things I'm going to teach you, and he ended up conquering the nerves, and he ended up becoming the starter on his team in just a few weeks of his training. A few more problems you might be facing are choking at crunch time, frustration from bad calls, fear of failure, trying to be perfect, burnout, too hard on yourself, coach showing favoritism, problems with teammates, competition for positions, backstabbing, gossiping, and the worst, problems with parents. Like feeling like you have to live up to their expectations and them putting pressure on you, right? You see, all these kinds of thoughts, they're like junk in your mind. Trash, right? And we want to get rid of them. I'm going to teach you how to take out those thoughts and get rid of them, because they hurt your performance and how you feel about yourself. Now, as I said, we're going to tackle all these issues and more and give you the tools to erase the mental junk forever. I'm excited to teach you all of these too. So let's get started. Go on to the next video.